Today, we're sitting down with someone who's redefining what it means to be successful in law, not just by winning cases, but by lifting others as she climbs. Rahysa Vargas isn't just the managing partner of a thriving real estate law firm, she's also the architect behind Miss Esquire, a movement that's transforming how women attorneys connect and grow. From competing as an octo finalist in the Buffalo Niagara mock trial to building a network of over 500 professionals, Rice's journey shows us that the best way to grow a career is not just by knowing the law, it's by creating genuine communities that empower others. Her story is particularly fascinating because it challenges the traditional notion that lawyers must choose between building a successful practice and making a broader impact. Through Miss Esquire, she's providing you can do both while helping underprivileged young women become future leaders. Before we dive into her remarkable journey of combining legal expertise with community building, I'd love to start by with understanding what sparked this unique vision of professional success that goes beyond the courtroom. So I am incredibly excited to have you here. Welcome, Raisa.
Thank you so much for having me, Ahmad. I'm excited to be on your show.
I'm excited to learn from you. I think what you've done is incredible. I've been researching you. I've been looking at what you've done, and I'm truly impressed. And I think that understanding other points of view and people successful in the legal field. I've had doctors here. I've had accountants. But lawyers' point of view is different, and I think that legal success is often measured in like how many cases you win, or but you built something that's bigger than yourself, which is Miss Esquire. Can you tell us like how did this come about? What was your career like for people that don't know you, and how did you connect this like legal practice or legal career with community building?
Yeah, awesome. So I started Miss Esquire back in 2015. I've been actually an attorney for a decade. So it was like the year after I became an attorney, I thought there was something missing, especially in the legal fields because we're predominantly men actually than there are women in the legal fields. And I felt, wouldn't it be amazing and incredible if we can have like-minded women come together and cross collaborate, answer questions, mentor each other. I really felt like there was a need and there was a space for what started as Miss Esquire. So I started originally a Facebook platform just simply for women to kind of connect. It was a private group and it still is a private group, but only for women attorneys. And we would check and vet every single women attorney. And then within 30 days, we had over 3,000 people that kind of
Wow.
joins, and it was out of control. Like I could not check people fast enough because you had to put your bar number and everything. And so then we realized we kind of capped it at 10,500. We have about 3,000 kind of still waiting to get into the group. So it's expanded throughout the entire United States, not just Florida. It's amazing to connect with like attorneys across the states. But really the idea behind it was really to how can we cross collaborate? I always think that there's enough room at the top. And if we all just kind of help each other, it helps people grow, become better attorneys, better in the legal community. So I just kind of felt that there was a need for it. There wasn't enough mentorship in the legal fields overall, both women and men, but most definitely needed in the women's space too, because we don't see enough like partners or enough managing partners at law firms or women on tracks to success in the legal field, unfortunately. So that's what I thought. There is a need for it. So that's how Miss Esper kind of grew.
What that's incredible. Like that you basically I always say it's easier to sell a painkiller than it is to sell a multivitamin, and you certainly hit a pain point.
Yeah.
And it was, why did you cap the group? What was it like? Is it because you think you go ahead?
It's hard to really have. So for me, it's never been about like I'm not trying to be a viral success. I'm just not. I mean, I think nothing against influencers. I think it's great.
Hmm.
But that's really never been my goal. It's always been authenticity and really having a community that supports the same mission. And it gets more difficult as you grow. So as you get 11,000, 12,000, 13,000 people in a group, it's much harder. Our engagement is a little bit above 2,500 engagements a day. So
Hmm.
when you have 2,500 engagements, policing everybody to be on the same train gets a little more difficult. So that's the
Sure.
reason why we kind of capped it.
So this is refreshing because most people is how big can I get? You're
Right.
looking at, I don't want to dilute the mission. I don't want to dilute. I don't want. I guess what you were trying to do, or what you're doing, is having people being heard, having people being seen. And if you have a million people, you're not seen or heard. Even
Right.
at 2,500, it's already a lot of. I don't want to call it noise, but to break beyond that, it'll be hard for someone that's first time coming into the industry, doesn't know, needs mentorship, and if they put a post, it's still going to be buried.
Yeah.
If it was bigger, it would be buried even harder. So, super interesting, and I'm incredibly attracted to empowerment, and I think that this is what you're doing. Could you share like a story where you saw this vision come to life in like maybe an unexpected way? Maybe 3,000 people in
Yeah.
30 days is a lot, but
Yeah.
later on.
Wow. So, I mean, I think what's kind of crazy about the group is I've grown with the group, which is really fun. Like, because I was a baby attorney when I started this group back in 2015, right? I knew nothing about nothing. I didn't know
Hmm.
what I didn't know. And there have been, I think the biggest honor for me is we have judges. Like right now, the Chief Justice came to our gala this year, and the fact that people recognize the brand. I mean, I get stopped in the courthouse and they're like, "Are you Mrs. Esquire?" And I'm like, "Wow, like that just became an identity," which is strange because it's never really what I thought about. But I think long after, like if you and I think about our profession, what is like our goal in our profession? Like maybe we build an incredible empire, an incredible business, and we leave it to somebody. But I think my legacy for me is like I hope to empower the next generation to be better than I was, you know? And
Wow.
a lot about Miss Esquire has been like I've gotten that gift from a lot of people. And I don't know that I can it's the reason why I went off on my own. So there's so many stories like that people have come up to me and they're like, because of this group, I was able to start my own law firm, or I was able to go off on my own, or I got a promotion because I brought one of the biggest clients from the group, or I was able to win successfully a case because somebody in the group kind of shared this information with me. And that has been really, really empowering to the point where after 6 years for working for somebody else, I was like, why haven't I gone off on my own? Like everybody literally has gone off on their own from my group. So I finally felt like empowered to do it. And what's kind of crazy, I mean, you know this, like starting a business from the ground up is hard. But
Yeah.
when you have an entire community, over 10,000 people that support you, it's absolutely amazing because I I when I decided to go off on my own, I saved 6 months worth of, things to feed my children. I have three kids under five. So I needed to make sure that we had enough money saved up before I went off on my own. And I never used a single cent. Like I never first year ever had to use any of my savings. And it's really because of the group, which is pretty incredible. Like I told everybody, hey, I'm going to go off on my own. And literally within the first week, people send me business. So I think that's the most empowering thing to see so many people cross collaborate, people that have been doing this longer than me. I love doing one-to-ones with people that have been in business for 35, 50 years to hear their success story, and the fact that they're willing to share it with us has been amazing. It's probably like the greatest part about still practicing for sure.
It's inspiring. I think that there's so many people that feel I'm not going to share, or if I have some success, don't tell it to anybody because they might copy you, or that that type of mentality of maybe divisive mentality, I would even call it. But you are embodying this collaborative, uniting energy that has promoted yourself and promoted everybody that's inside and empowered. And I understand like the growth, and I love it. And I think, but then why do you feel you went into law? Let's go like one step
Yeah.
behind that. You went into law. Why did you do that? And then
Yeah, so I actually came from parents that started from humble beginnings. My dad was actually homeless. We migrated here from Colombia. I was actually born in Colombia, and they didn't have very much when they came here, pretty much nothing. And they didn't have a background or an education. I saw my dad fought through so many things. Like he was never afforded an opportunity due to like poverty in his own country to go to school. And he did everything in the world to sacrifice for my brother and I to have the opportunity. And so I just always felt it's pretty amazing to have a role model that kind of shows you what real sacrifice looks like. And it's really leaves you no room for excuse to do something. And so for me, I just always wanted to help people. And I thought the way to help people would be uh, to be an attorney. I originally thought I wanted to do immigration, but turns out didn't want to do immigration. But originally, my mindset was like I wanted to help other people that were in similar situations start a new life in this country. And so I thought that's what I wanted to do in my life. So that's originally why I became an attorney. So I'm actually a first generation college graduate and then first generation doctorate graduate because no one in my family has ever gone to college. But that's really the reason. I think my parents showed me so much of what sacrifice looked like that I always wanted to make sure that I really had no excuse to not become everything I visualized in my life or every dream that I had as a young girl to like become in this country. That's a whole American dream, you know?
I love it. I love it, and it's inspirational, and it's refreshing, and it's empowering because I feel identified. I feel the gratitude. I feel that when you have opportunities like that, you take them as first time
Yeah.
immigrants or first time in a university. You don't waste time. And I don't want to make a criticize society, but once you move here and you hear so many people complaining that something is bad or the system is not so good, and you think it's for us. At least I'm also an immigrant. I'm like, this is amazing. Like I chose to come here, and I'm choosing to do the best I can, and I definitely feel identified with what you just said. And then now that you took it to you really took it to the next level, like helping others.
Thank you. Yeah, I think it's pretty like it for even at every single milestone that I've ever had, to watch my parents be able to witness that, it's actually more even for them. You know what I mean? Like what a gift it is that their sacrifice is not in vain and that their kids get to live a life that's even better than they ever had or ever dreamed of. And so it's kind of an honor to be able to, like, A, I'm super grateful to have been in this country, but B, an honor to be able to do what I get to do and I love. And so I'm grateful that I found an opportunity to kind of give back and like cross collaborate with other people too.
For sure. And such a powerful why. Now that you did, and you were successful as a lawyer, successful building this community, what do you think? What pearls of wisdom can you give us? What mistakes do you think people are making when they're trying to follow your steps and doing their own community or doing their own law practice?
Yeah, so I think you don't know what you don't know, and until you kind of get mentorship. So you never want to be the smartest people in the room or think they are super arrogant and know everything. Like every day I feel like I know nothing because I'm like, wow, I can be better at this. I can learn more about this. But one of the things I I don't know if you feel this way, but like for me, I find that a lot of the new generation, they want like quick gratification. And my dad said this to me like not so long ago. He's like, the overnight success took 30 years.
Yeah,
And it's true because it didn't take overnight, right? Like if it's too easy, it's too good to be true, it's probably short term. You know what I mean? So in order to get where you are, businesses are built on like very long processes. And I think I don't know. Now we have a lot of like a culture. For me, it's very different. Like people are trying to do work-life balance and all these things. For me, I'm still the mindset, old school mindset, I guess, of like there needs to be dedication, hard work, and a grind for everything that you want to do or achieve in your life. And that motivates me. Like I have three kids under five, and I'm always like, they're the next generation. I want to make sure that they kind of have a role model that's like anything can be achieved if you work extremely hard, but extremely hard comes with sacrifices and comes with a lot of work. Like everything you see on Instagram is not real. There are very late
Mm.
nights and a lot of sacrifice and a lot of things that you have to do to get to where you are. It's possible, but it takes a lot of work. It's definitely not for the faint of hearted, but if it was easy, everyone would do it. You know what I mean? That's kind of the whole
And it
thing.
wouldn't be valuable.
Exactly. So I think like one of the biggest things is like for people to like visualize everything you want in your life and set goals and constantly remind yourself like what is the reason, what is the why, and is the purpose like if it doesn't fulfill you, like the purpose is not something that you're continuing, then it's gonna the fire and the like the ignition is gonna burn out, you know, the flames are gonna burn out. So you have
Hmm.
to constantly like have a driving force, whether that's your family, because success to me is not like just monetarily things, you know? A lot of it looks like I want my kids to grow up in a world where they do believe in the power of their dreams, but also understand that they cost, you know, real work to get there.
Yeah. I 100% agree with the instant gratification problem in society, but I don't think it's a new generation, actually. I think as human, like our species, our animal instinct is to, I'm hungry, I eat. I'm sleepy, I sleep. You know, I'm tired, and the same thing. Like I think it's a very evolved. It takes a lot of education to think long term. It's counter instinctual, is what I'm trying to say.
Right.
So I agree with you, and I would add that when people want a goal, they should say, "I want to be successful in 10 years. I want
Hmm.
to put 10 years of work into this." And if I share like this podcast to me is something new. It's something I started 3 months ago.
Right.
And I didn't say, oh, by the end of the year, I should have X, Y, Z. I said, let's see if I can get good at this in 10 years.
Yeah.
And if your reaction is, oh, I don't have patience for this for 10 years, then you shouldn't do it. Like
Yeah.
you'll fail if you'll fail if anyways. But if you
Right.
think, okay, I can put the work for 10 years, I can do it for 10 years, uh, then you don't see these shortcomings as like problems. You just think I'm still learning, I'm still finding my way, I'm still finding how I can do things, and success isn't measured in this quarter. It's measured in, okay, in 10 years, maybe I'm good at it, maybe I'm still learning. But I 100% agree with you. And then taking this same theme, that how it happens to me in investing. Many people say like, hey, I want the quick flip. I want to, now that Bitcoin is in all-time highs, oh, should I go in this, or Miami real estate is, it seems like there's no gravity
Right.
to prices. It just keeps going out. And you think how I get the reaction of how do people have so much money? Like it's just crazy. What lesson did I miss? Because everybody seems to be killing it. How has your legal background influenced your investment philosophy?
Well, I mean, so the this is the advantage of being an attorney is that I will say investing is really scary. So, especially if you're a first time investor, so not understanding what you're signing or contracts or looking into what, you know, the reality of it. Like, I have so many clients that come up to me. This is I'm not trying to like, you know, pitch myself, but definitely have an attorney if you have no idea what you're doing.
Sure.
Because the cost of it is way more expensive if you don't know what's happening. Like even title, like people invest in like, you know, they think it's a great deal, but did it come with like 1,700 things on title, you know, judgments or liens or taxes or, you know, estate issues. So for me, I think one of the things that I've learned along the way, I've loved seeing a lot of investors actually come invest, and and luckily for me, I get to deal with a lot of different realtors that tell me a lot of information regarding investing. I don't even deal with numbers because that's not my My thing is more on whether or not it's legally a good investment. But what I have found is that I love learning from all specters. Get like a really good team behind you. And so like on the legal end, just finding really good people that know what they're talking about in numbers, knowing realtors that have been really good and knowing that like you mentioned, this is not like a short term like no investment project is going to give you a huge return. If it does, it's probably a Ponzi scheme. So like
Yeah.
know that if it's like you're going to invest into something, it's going to be long term. And people always ask like, is this a good time to invest? I'm like, every year is a good time to invest because as you mentioned, prices keep going up. So that only just means that you're building equity, right? Like in everything that you're purchasing. But also to your point that everybody in Miami looks like it has money, I feel like there's just a lot of, yes, there's a lot of people that come here that have money. That's definitely true because it's a great place to live, which is it's great if you can invest here because it's a great place to live. It'll never be a place where people don't want to live. So that's number one. But number two, there's a lot of people that there's a lot of fake money out here too.
All show, no
Yeah.
no substance. I actually want to highlight something that you said very subtly. Uh, Investment with a lawyer, you always have to do it
Hmm.
because it's all about the fine print. I've noticed that in real estate, no one is going to build a bad project. No one. No one wants to lose money. The bank doesn't want to lose money. Investors don't want to lose money. Developers don't want to lose money. Nobody's there to lose money.
Right.
But the way you structure a deal is how you lose money.
Yeah.
The
100%.
way that it's written in paper, your covenants, your responsibilities, that's how you lose money.
Yeah.
And when you deal with someone that is more savvy, I think that that's the difference between professional and amateurs. I think when someone thinks I'm going to do it by myself, I'm like, you're going to get eaten alive.
Oh,
It's like stepping in the court with Michael Jordan. Like you cannot, like a super professional against someone that
yeah.
has no idea. It's just they're going to be eaten alive. So I think you were very spot on into never go into a deal without an attorney. And I think also attorneys bring a lot to the table. They bring that, like you said, it's not the numbers that you're looking at, but you're looking at the structure. You're looking at how, if legally this makes sense.
Yeah.
And it could be a great investment, a great investment. But if you're not in the right place or in the right structure, you're going to get the bone. You're, you're not going to get anything.
Or even knowing attorneys, like we deal with a lot of investors, so I've had to learn a lot of things that are structured differently. Like we do a lot of seller financing, and you need to know even on seller financing, like what is a percentage? Because those are creative financing. This is
Yeah.
not like actually from a bank. So having somebody that's reading the fine print on it, because most of them are balloon mortgages. Like, are you realistically going to be able to pay this? I've had investors come to me and they're like, okay, yeah, we're going to get seller financing 18 months. We're going to flip it. So we need to do like gut the entire thing. And then we need a refinance. I'm like, so how much are you getting on this? Like, how much are they lending you? 100%. I'm like, who's going to refinance that? Like what happens after
Yeah.
like,
You'll
no
have a cash in refi.
one,
You'll have to cough up $400,000 probably,
yeah,
and
I'm like,
then or a million, whatever it is, and then you're gonna be like, I can't do it. So then
they don't know what they're, so
repossess.
it's like knowing the fact that like sounds really great in theory. They're going to get
Yeah.
100% from your seller financing, but it's only 18 months. But you're not going to
Yeah.
get anybody to refinance you on the end. Then it's like teaching people that that's not actually going to happen. You know what I mean? So yeah, it's definitely knowing somebody that has worked with like a lot of investors, even on the creative side, a lot of seller financing going on, that these are balloon mortgages and people don't know they're going to, you know, it's not a good idea unless it's a good idea. But yeah, it's
And I like what you said about, like, if it's too good to be true, like look at it 10 times, because why would anybody do this?
yeah, exactly.
If it was such a good idea, I'm usually the investor that has the skeptical hat. And when someone offers me an investment, I think, who else passed on this already?
Yeah.
Why do they want me to invest? What does And when someone tells me like a huge red flag, you're the first one I come with it, I'm like, okay, good, pass. I don't want to be the first one to see this. I want to be like, I like it when sponsors say, I've took it, I've talked to 10 people, it wasn't the right time for them, or they decided that this wasn't good, or whatever. Tell me the story because then you can understand like why is this coming to me, and then you need to talk to your lawyer. You need, like you're saying, understand the structure,
Yeah.
understand where you are, and seller financing, something that something that's easy. Be careful, because that's where most, like signing a paper is the easiest bit, but then doing the gut renovate, just getting the permit within
18
10
months.
months, it'll be hard. And then you have to get a GC that can do something on time, which is very hard.
For refi. Yeah.
And then you have to get all your papers to refi. It's just, it's not realistic. So
Yeah.
unless you're not Michael Jordan, if you're Michael Jordan of this, and you have like, oh, I can flip this in 3 months, 99% of you are not that. So don't
Yeah.
get into these problems.
Exactly. Yeah, I would agree. I think so. I think it's coming to us, and like we kind of walk through like, I understand you want to do this. Let's talk about what the whole, even know which ones need certificate of occupancies. You're gonna go into Miami Shores. You're gonna go to Miami Springs. You're gonna go to highly different areas that all require certificate of occupancy. How backed up are they? Building
Yeah.
departments.
Yeah.
So all those things are important factors when you're looking at investing. We come from a also background of doing hard money loans, so knowing kind of like and it's not to say that all seller financing is bad, because there's a lot of good seller financing, but knowing like what does 18% really look like? What does that really mean?
Sure. And I think the conclusion is surround yourself with experts. Surround yourself with people that know what they're doing. Surround yourself with people that can give you a different opinion. And then I have a new saying that I started using this year, is like, is this a horoscope thing or is it like a real thing? When people are like, oh, the market is growing, and this is like, I'm starting to think like, this sounds a little bit like a horoscope,
Hmm.
like all the stars need to align, and then you make money. I say, maybe you need to, maybe participate in the loan,
Right.
because then nothing has to go right, and you're still up. And I
Mhm.
love that this like real estate law gives you that unique perspective on property investments. Like it's so refreshing and different. What other patterns other than seller financing are you seeing in today's market that you think other people are missing?
So I think like on my ends, even contractually, I want to say that there's a lot of great realtors. I work with like some of the best realtors, so this does not apply to my realtors, but even the other side, like they're doing a disservice to their client. And the reason I say that is because, listen, especially in the service industry, like I always tell people, every consultation I do is free. For the first 15 minutes, I'll talk to you for just to talk to you, to give you advice, right? I'm not in the trade of like making money just to make money. I'm not going to charge people just to charge people. Like I genuinely think that authenticity is way more important. Sometimes I tell people this is not a good idea. And that means I'm not going to make any money off of it. But you know what? When it is a good idea, they'll come to me, and because they're like, "Hey, that's the one that told me that it wasn't a good idea." So sometimes being authentic is going to lead you to have a lot more business. And what I find sometimes is we have a lot of realtors, I get it. They have to feed their families, they have to feed their kids, but they're trying to shove something that's not good to their client, and it's a disservice, or they don't know anything of what they're doing. Like they have absolutely no idea what they're doing. They haven't read contracts, they don't know like how to fill out contracts, they don't know what they're doing for their client, they're not checking special assessments, they don't know if the building's in good shape. We have new laws changing right now for condominiums after the Surfside,
Yeah.
that these are buildings that no one's lending on. So it's like they're blacklisted buildings. They have people tied up on money. They don't check escrow deposits. They don't like, there's a lot going on right now in the real estate space. And, there was a point where everybody was a realtor. So it makes it really difficult because a lot of those people have not been trained and or know what they're doing. So we do have a lot of those coming in where we really have to be on the side of the client, and even coaching some of the like realtors that are coming in to make sure they're not doing a disservice to their client. Because the worst thing that could happen is you put somebody in a home or an investment that doesn't work out, they're never coming back to you. So I always try to talk to people through the realization that the best thing that we can do is to service our clients correctly, because they're going to come back. That's the truth.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
I like your point of It's maybe it's maybe an alignment point. It's also, I agree with you. Everybody's a realtor, and there's a lack of knowledge there, and that produces these problems. But it's also a misalignment. It's when people think I need to win. What we were talking before, the quick, let's just make a commission and let's leave, and then if it doesn't work out, well, it's the market. It's not me.
Hmm.
I can't be responsible for what happens in the market, and so they don't feel ownership with their suggestions, or they're willing to sell anything. So I agree that I, I, I think working with professionals, everybody's point of view builds the truth.
Right.
The realtor has a point of view and a space in the market. The lawyer has a point of view and a space in the market. We as investment professionals have our point of view and our view of the market. And then none of us are correct unless we consult with all of us.
Hmm.
It's like this is how you can build. And if someone says no, it's actually better because you spark. This is how Ray Dalio always hired smart people to confront him and say you're wrong, because then it forces you to think a little bit more. Think again. Am I actually wrong? Okay, if I'm actually wrong, then let me think this again, and then see, either be more convinced and then be able to act on more conviction, or change your point of view. And I think that all these steps, amateur investors or amateur people or first time buyers or they're not doing all of these, and it's they should.
Yeah. 100% agree.
How do you What do you find as the biggest pain point on your personal investing life? How do you invest? What's your philosophy? And then what are pain points that you're feeling?
So for me, I think that so we actually did hard money loans originally.
With your own money?
Yeah. So in the last year, our investing kind of, we own properties, but also we did a lot of hard money loans. We're actually collecting the last bit that we have out right now, just
Hmm.
because, we've studied a lot the market, and it's not always the best time to have a lot of money out, right? It's actually, for me, I think it's interesting because I think that it's going to be a good year to go back into investing. So it just really depends on where we are and what year, if we're structuring money into hard money loans or if we're structuring money back into investing,
Equity?
right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So right now we are more on making sure we have all of our money back so that we can invest properly into what we want. I actually think a lot of my investing is going to be more up north. A lot of people are moving from like South Florida into North Florida. The more families we have, the more this becomes saturated. Like Miami's always going to be a great area, but there's going to be a market for everything.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things that are coming here that make it a very lucrative city because we have a lot of tourism. There's going to be Formula One. There's going to be, FIFA. There's going to be so many different projects that are always going to bring people to Miami, Art Basel. That's never going to stop. So I think it's going to be a great time and opportunity for investing. But I also think if we're looking at multifamily slash residential, there's a lot of projects that are going to be further up north that are really great for that too.
Hmm.
Where are new areas that are close to big cities that are going to develop? I've seen a huge influx of people kind of moving from Miami in the last couple of years, people that are from Miami, while we have a lot of people coming from other states. It's kind of funny because we're having a lot of people from New York, a lot of people from California, but then there are people that have been here forever that are kind of moving out. And where are they moving to? So they're moving up north, they're moving to Orlando, they're moving to Ocala, they're moving to, and there's a lot of Mount Dora. There's a lot of areas near Orlando, for example, because everybody just knows Orlando. Near Orlando that are becoming more residential areas, but are still really affordable. So
Hmm.
for me, I think I'm looking at more projects. Like Ocala is like something there's a lot of land, and Miami doesn't have a lot of land. That I think are going to be really big residential projects. So I start looking at where we're going to find a lot of multifamily versus straying away from like Airbnb because we already
Yeah.
have that. But like you need to diversify your projects. It can't be like everything Airbnb, everything. You know, for me, it needs to be a mixture of long-term rentals where you have them, so more residential areas, and then short-term rentals where do you have them, areas where people are really going to go to events. Art Basel, Formula One. No one's going to go from like maybe Kendall to a Formula One event. That's too far in terms of like Airbnb. That needs to be more of like a residential. So you need to look at like what is trending in your market and what's going to give you the best ultimate return. Also, where are we going to appraise? I mean, looking at appraisal value, if you get a pre-construction deal in Ocala that's, multifamily, you can buy three, and we're talking about pre-construction prices in Ocala. This is a totally different ballpark than like, here. But already once it's fully constructed, can we now assign the rights to somebody else because it's going to appraise at over $100,000 more?
Yeah.
So I think that's where we're at, like kind of diversifying. I always think it's important to have a little bit of both. So you kind of share like the costs on, there's pros and cons to both. Obviously, you know this more than I do. There's pros and cons to everything, but like making sure you're diversifying both.
I we call it flexibility. What you're describing is most people call it diversification. We call it flexibility because when you diversification says you need to have different things that are non-correlated that work in different times when you have different cycles. So you have a cycle when something goes up. You have, for instance, insurance is a great example of a diversification. You have your car, which is your asset, and you have insurance on it. So if you never crash your car, insurance was the worst investment you made because you lost money.
Right.
But if you crash your car, it was the best investment you made because you saved the pot. This is how diversification works.
Yeah.
But what you're saying, and that's why we call it flexibility, is because you're moving your thesis depending on what you're trying to accomplish. You're starting to see market trends and moving the thesis and being flexible to that thesis to saying, I'm not going to buy pre-construction Miami because, like I said at the beginning, it's like the price, how much higher can it go?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
From $4,000 or $3,000 a square foot to 32 or 45. It's like the bump is so little, it's not worth the risk that you're taking in case there's a big recession or there's a big problem or there's too much supply coming on the market, which there is.
Yeah.
But in Ocala, you might be like, okay, this from 500 to 1,000, it's possible, and you're doubling your money.
Mm-hmm.
What are the biggest misconceptions that other attorneys have about building wealth through investments?
Misconceptions that
Yeah.
invest. I don't. That's a great question.
Yeah, this one's a deep one.
I'm like, what is the biggest misconception we have? I don't know. Um, I don't know. What's
I
the big?
find I find that people, for instance, think that lawyers are flushed with money,
Oh, wow, that's great. That's definitely not true. You know,
and
it's
it's a
funny.
misconception.
I I I I respect everybody in this industry. I think realtors do a great job. Sometimes people think that realtors don't do anything. I mean, I think the really good ones, they work their butt off. I mean, I see them picking up their clients, like halftime therapy, negotiation, like working. Yeah, I think a lot of people think here's two things. I think a lot of people think that we do nothing, which is unfortunate. Even on the title side, fixing so many things on title, closing permits, checking liens, like calling, fixing deeds. There's so many bad title companies that thank God half of them went out of business, but some of them still exist because they don't have attorneys. And me having, I mean, I just recently, I'm dealing with one right now that's supposed to close next week. The deed was done incorrectly 2 deeds ago. Now I'm trying to find that title company. They're closed. So trying to get a corrective deed, I have to hire an investigator to go over there and find the person who originally signed it because it's wrong and it changes the title. But like, there's a title company in between that bad deed and me that did nothing about it, right? So, we're not all created equally. So that's really important because some people are like, there's a saying in Spanish that says lo barato sale caro. Like it's like what is cheap ends up being more expensive down like in the long run. I think we do a lot of work, but some people think we get paid astronomically. Just like ironically enough, sometimes I'll see commissions and I'm like, I'm in the wrong industry. Like what am I doing with my life? Like I should have never gone to law school. Like all this debt to like, it's not. But I do think realtors that are really great do a lot of a lot of, they put a lot of work into making a deal happen. There's a lot of creative negotiation too. But the misconception for sure is that we make too much money. Also, sometimes this is an interesting part. Like sometimes people think we should work for free. I don't know what's going on with that. Lately, I've had a lot of people ask me if I'll just draft the documents for free. I'm like, okay, and how do you want my kids to eat? I'm not sure. Like, that's the whole thing. We're drafting documents, can't be for free. So,
I think it's. I agree with you that there's this misconception, but I also feel that it's a lack of communication. Perhaps it's like
yeah,
the realtor doesn't just like these Netflix series show glamorous lives, but really, most realtors have to show like condos at 10 p.m.
okay.
Sorry,
You're fine.
my Netflix was turned on. They have to show things at 10 p.m. on a Sunday, and then again at 7 a.m. because someone wants to see, and then they want to pick them
Yeah,
up from the airport, and then they need to go. And it says it's a
it's a lot of,
difficult, and the same thing happens with law. It's it's not the document that has the value.
right.
Because the person that reads the document, they say, "This is so easy. ChatGTP could do it. Maybe I shouldn't pay you." But it's not the document that's the value. It's the relationship with the lawyer who wrote that document because they studied 10 years or 15 years in their industry to be able to write that document and know the downside protection of that. What happens if something happens? If you do ChatGTP and something happens and then you go to a lawyer and you say, "Hey, I have a problem," they'll be like, "This is you have nothing to go on. Like, I have no idea what strategy you had behind it."
I actually recently saw something, another podcast, which I thought was phenomenal. Somebody said, like, doctors get, a doctor was being interviewed. They're like, do you know, everybody thinks that doctors get paid too much money. And they're like, yeah, but you don't understand the 15 years that it took for me to get there. Yes, I only saw you for 15 minutes, but all the knowledge that I had to acquire for 15 years is the reason you pay me this much, right? So it's
Yeah.
true because you, like, as a consumer, you have no idea all the little things that we're checking to make this, and I even think this is part of our downfall, which I've spoken to my staff too about, that we can get better at, because I'm always trying to find pain points in our industry that we can get better at, is more communication with our clients. So sometimes we communicate with our client a lot, but we don't want to scare our client to knowing all the problems that we have to fix before they get to the table. So when they get to the table, I kind of give them a background summary thing that happened, right? But before they get to the table, they think we kind of like, oh well, we've only spoken a few times, everything's been fine. No, actually, there was a lot of things that we needed cleared up and that needed to be closed, and we needed to find out, and IRS liens and judgments and list pendants, all these things that I needed to clarify before you can get clear title. And in fact, in our industry, going with a title company sometimes versus going with an attorney is that some of the title companies, they leave everything on as a title exception. So what that means is when you go to sell your property, it's filled with encumbrances, like tons of different issues that you go to sell it, and then you're like, wait, what do you mean this permit wasn't closed? What do you mean that this judgment wasn't closed? What do you mean we still had a list pendants? Because the title company made you sit down, they didn't explain anything, you just signed everything that day,
Yeah.
and you didn't know that you didn't get clear title. They're actually not required to do that. But I am required to go through the notion of explaining things to you and making sure you understand if there are any exceptions. So that's a huge difference, and I take a lot of pride in what I do, and making sure that at the end game we do kind of explain it. But what I've been trying to harp on my team is, like, sometimes we need to tell people, like, hey, these are all the issues that are going on, not to worry, we've got it covered, we're going to fix them, but just so that they know that there's a lot more involved than the last document you're going to sign on the day of closing.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, that's why lawyers are not going to be replaced by AI. That's why you need
Yep.
to pay your lawyers. You need to pay your realtors, and because there is value there, I think that it's not a price thing. It's more like there's value in what happens behind closed doors, and you might see it all smooth, and that's why you paid to be it smooth. If you
Right.
did it by yourself, it's not going to be smooth.
Exactly.
Looking 5 years ahead, um, what do you see happening with Miss Esquire? Where do you want to take it, and how do you see yourself empowering more women in law?
Um, so right now, Miss Esquire kind of changed. We're not just women in law. We've actually, so we have 8 in-person networking chapters that are referral based, and actually we do accept men because we appreciate men too, by the way. But this is not just for women now. The in-person networking the flat platform is always going to be for women attorneys, but the in-person chapters, which is it runs on a different platform, is for business professionals like mortgage brokers, bankers, realtors, also attorneys. So we're still 80% based attorneys and 20% based on service industries that refer to each other. It's category exclusive. So we have 8 of those. I've only opened those chapters 3 years ago. I do go to every single one of those meetings. So kind of takes a toll on my life, which is why people are like, when are you expanding more? So 2025, I needed to take a break. We expanded to Orlando, which also requires me to go to Orlando every single month. But now in 2025, we're expanding to New York, which I'm really excited about. We've had
Wow.
a huge need in New York. Everybody asks us to go to New York. So, February 2025, we're launching New York. So I'll be in New York in January for one of our events. And then I actually have always been kind of interested in doing a Spanish version of this.
Wow.
So we might do one in Doral, like Spanish business professionals in Spanish. So yeah, we'll probably continue to grow the network. I mean, our in-person chapters meet once a month, and the idea behind it is to really equip business owners or C-suite executives with the 3 main tools that we think that make businesses thrive, which is like marketing, marketing, business development, growth and scaling, and in those industries, we have people come in, coaches and things kind of teach everybody, do workshops within our one lunch that we have a month. And so I think it'll continue to grow and develop. I love hearing people in the group because they've been doing this longer than us. So kind of learning from the group. Yeah.
That's wonderful and super exciting.
Yeah.
And I love the Spanish side too. You know, it's like I do a bilingual podcast. I
Okay.
have bilingual social media. I work with people in Latin America. I speak both languages, and I find that it's such a, perhaps like you said, or I said, sorry, a pain point when you started Miss Esquire, that the first day or first 30 days, there was 3,000 people there. And I find that Spanish speaking communities are extremely hardworking. They're successful, but there's definitely a need to collaborate more.
Yeah.
So I think that that's going to be super interesting, and very excited to see where that goes in the future.
Yeah, and I think actually a lot of my business this year I've seen has been from other Hispanics, and I'm like, there's a whole untapped market that I'm excited to go into and just kind of learn from people. I mean, that have like migrated here and had successful businesses and like their drive. It's pretty amazing. So I'm excited for this year.
Well, it was wonderful to have you here and learn from you, and it's definitely inspiring everything that you shared. I like to finish podcast by asking you what inspires you in the work you do today.
So I think my kids like are really the driving force and inspiration for me. Like I mentioned this earlier, but like they're really the next generation. So they inspire me every day for sure. And I thank God because I feel like for me, I've always, every morning I wake up like grateful that God gave me another opportunity to be with my kids, to do what I love, to be able to be a business owner, to come into the office. Like I'm always grateful for Mondays. Some people are like grateful for Fridays. I'm like, I'm
Mm,
grateful for Monday. But and it like what's inspiring to me is like I hope that like every day I can give back and that I'm one step closer to what God really envisioned for my life. And so I I don't know that hopefully at the end of my life he's like, well done, but I'm inspired by the fact that I get to kind of hopefully be closer to what his vision and his destiny is for me.
that's wonderful. I'm very excited. This is your space if you ever want to come back, and I definitely want to. I will keep tabs, and I will keep in contact to see 5 years down the line, 10 years down the line, what
Right.
you achieve, and definitely supporting you.
Thank you so much for having me. You're gonna great success on this podcast. It was a wonderful opportunity.
Thank you again for coming.